You're at 109 right now.
Lazy Acres in Redondo, near Redondo Beach. Redondo, Hermosa. I don't know. Use Google, use GPS. Lazy Acres has some grass fed burritos that are quite tasty. And as far as good ingredients go, the grass fed part of the beef, that makes it better. Of course, eating beef is not something that we should do it daily, but I'm happy I was able to get one of these burritos. They're tasty. Well, this is another IC 109 production, and I'm ruminating over here over the past 2 days events. On Friday, oh, by the way, this is being recorded on a Sunday morning. Easy like Sunday morning. Well, on Friday, the one thing that happened mm, is the marathon clothing team showed up to the school where I am a substitute teacher. That is one Dorsey High School. And for all the months of working at Dorsey and for just my decision to work at Dorsey, that was, you know, icing on the cake, cherry on top of the experience, having had this encounter with the marathon clothing team, especially um, Nipsey's brother, Blacc Sam. But you know how things go after you have an experience, then your mind races to think of the possibilities. Like, man, I could have done this. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? I could have said this. I would have said that. Now, I'm not beating myself up because I didn't say certain things or bring up, whatever, because I believe that, everything is in divine order, and everything, happens for a reason, and everything will have its time and place. And so, in the case of being there on Friday for that moment, that I believe was a moment that was created, 5 months before, when I decided to, assume the position of a substitute teacher at one Dorsey High School. So, you dig? It's burrito. And I talked with Big Mike yesterday. We made a podcast. Oh, by the way, if you hear birds chirping at all, if you hear airplanes flying overhead, that's because my doors are open. Now, even if I close the doors, yes, there will be it's less likely that the airplanes will be um, noticeable, but they probably will still be noticeable. The topic of this podcast, this episode, well, it's me ruminating you know, on Friday, basically. Let's see, Friday, Jupiter's day, right? Friday is no. Jueves, that's Thursday. Viernes, Viernes is Friday, which is Venus's day. All right, so let me run it down. Let's go over what happened.
You're at 109 right now.
As a matter of fact, I'm gonna take some time, close these doors, and I'm gonna play something borrowed from a YouTube channel, and that's gonna set the tone for what we're gonna talk about next. Here it comes.
Hip-hop, in its highest and purest form, is a divine frequency. It's a frequency of honor, of authenticity, of perseverance, and respect. It's a frequency that lifts spirits, inspires belief, and makes us feel as if anything is possible. It's a frequency that gives us the confidence to say, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, and this is why you should respect it. All of the greats have attuned themselves to this frequency. It's the reason there's a Malcolm X Boulevard in Harlem. It's the reason you feel like the man when you put on a Rock Nation hat. It's the reason Nike supports Colin Kaepernick and the reason Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was able to take down the House. This frequency is the reason why millions of people around the world have lifted Nipsey Hussle up with honor and respect as the true neighborhood and global hero that he is. Upon first glance, it may appear that Nipsey's greatest gifts were his musical abilities and business acumen, but anyone that's been touched by his spirit knows it goes much deeper than that. Nipsey comes from a blessed bloodline of true spiritual warriors. Despite challenging outside circumstances, Nipsey owned and honed his spiritual gifts by constantly seeking knowledge and truth and applying what he learned in all aspects of his life. In the book The Seat of the Soul, Gary Zukav explains that when we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with the highest part of ourselves, we are filled with enthusiasm, purpose, and meaning. When the personality comes fully to serve the energy of the soul, that is authentic empowerment. And that's exactly what Nipsey was, authentically empowered, or in layman's terms, a real one. If Nipsey ever touched you, motivated you, or inspired you in any way, it's because you're on that same path towards authentic empowerment. We are being called to become the highest and truest versions of ourselves, and we honor Nip's legacy when we do so. What is unique about you? What are your gifts? What sets you apart from the crowd? Visualize what it would look like and feel like to fully express your desires, passions, and ideas in your style, in your voice, in any environment, unapologetically. Are there parts of yourself that you're still hiding and holding back? What if your entire purpose, mission, career, success, and happiness depends upon you being the most unique and authentic version of yourself? Think about where you're from and the experiences, good or bad, that shaped you into who you are today. Visualize all the strong qualities you gained from your neighborhood, family, and friends. Gratefully reflect on all the people that have supported you along your journey. Embrace your roots, celebrate your culture, boldly share yourself with the world. That's what Nipsey did, and that's why he is held up with names like Malcolm and Jesus. If you love Nipsey, celebrate him by emulating and embodying everything about him that was great. Move with honor, be a person of principle, be authentic, show love to all people, honor your elders, fight for what you believe in, never give up, and don't rob the world of your unique gifts and story. Connect with Nipsey and tap into his frequency when you listen to his music, when you watch his interviews, and when you read the books that he read. Attune yourself to a higher power through prayer and meditation, and seek the truth for yourself.
It's fading out. When we come back, more at IC 109.
You're at 109 right now.
We're back, and this burrito is delicious. It's still delicious. I'd like to say that on that Friday, as I drove into work, I was listening to the Malcolm X debate against Bayard Rustin. That set the tone for the day. And just as the meditation, as the Nipsey Hussle meditation explained, Nipsey's name holds as much weight, I think, within among some of us, those of us who knew Nipsey and knew his legacy or watched the development of his life. His name resonates as deeply as Malcolm X, and dare I say, Jesus Christ. She said it during the meditation. The young woman said it, and I took that. I copied that message. I copied her voice from her YouTube video, because what she was speaking, what she was saying, that resonated with me deeply because of the experiences that I had. And the epiphany, the moments of epiphany that occurred when I was in Oman, I knew very deeply. I knew, within my soul that what she was speaking was the truth, was my truth. But anyhow, as I was saying, on Friday, I was driving to work listening to Malcolm X. That set the tone for the day. Because I don't just turn on some popular music and on a radio and listen to a radio station that plays popular music 24/7. No, I'm searching for truth. I'm searching for my truth. I'm searching for the expression of truth throughout time. I want to hear, how did he do it? How did they do it? What was their rationale? How did they speak? How did they articulate themselves? How did they address these issues? Because the issues are the same today as they were back in the day. There's still messages. Malcolm X's messages are still relevant to this day. His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie I, his message is still relevant today. Frederick Douglass's messages are still relevant today. Che Guevara, his message is still relevant today. So I listen to these great men. I listen to and I reference them, and I go back to their works and I read their works. And Paul Mooney, the comedian, just to give you some development, some idea of my personal development, I want to talk about 2004 just briefly. In 2004, I attended a Paul Mooney concert, Paul Mooney performance at the Laugh Factory on Sunset Boulevard. My mother and father invited me to the show. I thought it was because Paul Mooney wasn't a younger comedian. I thought, well, I may not like his comedy, or I may not. I knew his name. So I knew that he was famous and a legend. And so I said, well, I must attend this legendary performance. So what the heck? And I remember sitting in the office and feeling uneasy because the way his comedy is, the way he set it up, he was speaking to a certain portion of the audience, and that's what it felt like. And then he was ridiculing. If I felt that he was ridiculing some people in the audience, well, he definitely was ridiculing people in the audience, or just ridiculing people in general. But if you could relate to what he was talking about, either you were part of the ridiculed, or you were the part of the those who agreed with the ridicule. But there was nothing ridiculous about his work and what he said, his truth. But so in 2004, I wasn't privy to all that he was saying or speaking. I didn't understand. It didn't resonate with me. I didn't have the knowledge base that he did. But from his perspective and from his understanding and from his truth, that's all he was speaking. He was just speaking the truth. But I hadn't, so I was like, man, who's he? Is he talking? He's talking about me. Oh man, he's cracking jokes about people like me. Anyhow, that was 2004. I'm a very different person today. If you put on a Paul Mooney record, I'm not gonna feel any way about it. I'm gonna be like, right on, Paul. Keep it coming, Paul. I want to hear more. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's right. Whereas back then it was, what is he talking about? What? Who's he talking about? Oh, what? Oh man, he shouldn't say that. No, Oh yes, he should say that. So the point being, I'm a different person today. All that time has passed, and so much learning and research and life experiences have led me to a similar truth as those that were shared by one Paul Mooney. But anyway, so on Friday, I was listening to Malcolm X and I was driving to work, getting into the spirit. When I got to work, they gave me my assignment, just regular stuff. Here, you're a substitute teacher, go to this class and, and stick with it. I said, all right. If I recall, I was with a familiar group of students. I was with the same group of students that I had been with for a number of weeks while their teacher was out. They were familiar with me. I was familiar with them. First period went by, and there were no issues, no biggie. Then, excuse me, I did know. They told me, not the students, but the teachers, the staff. On my assignment for the day, there was the school festival that was to begin around 2 p.m. So I knew what was going to happen. I was going to be in the classroom for 3 or 4 periods with the students. And then at the end, on the last period, which would have been the fourth period, fifth period, whatever, the last period of the day, instead of having a class, there would be school performances, there would be a festival, there would be, all of these things. And so, that being the case, I understood what was going to happen for the rest of the day. So as the day progressed, I had students come into the classroom, and when they were gone, then the next group funneled in, and then after 3 periods of being with students, we were done, and then the festivities began. The festivities began at lunchtime, actually. I was in the classroom all alone eating my lunch, but I could hear the music coming from outside. And so at some point I did leave the classroom and say, man, forget being alone in a classroom. It was the after lunch was to be the teacher's preparation time. So on any other week, the teacher would have prepared her lesson in a quiet room, but and that prep lesson, that prep class immediately followed the lunch break. So anyway, during the lunch break, knowing that I didn't have anything to do, I said, man, let me go outside and see what's going on outside. All this music is blaring. I go outside and there's a performance, a radio station has set up, and the kids are all around, yelling and chanting and just having themselves a ball. And I watched this for a minute, and then I went back into the room to retrieve my GoPro apparatus so I can film the day's events. So I went back out there and grabbed the phone. Luckily, I was prepared with it. So I got back out there and I started filming the students. I had no idea who was performing. The kids certainly seemed to be enjoying themselves, so I just recorded them. Well, And so after that performance, there was a bit of a lull between that event, which, let's see, it began during lunch and it carried over until, well, I guess until the end of lunch. It was going on during lunch. That's the point. So after lunch, then I had the prep period. And I decided rather than stay in the classroom, I would go to the teacher's lounge because there were no students for me to work with and what have you. And I was all alone once again, which I'm okay with, but it was getting quite boring. So I go into the teacher's lounge, and as I sit in the teacher's lounge, I began to debate whether I should remain at the school. I thought, well, why should I stick around? I have this period here, and then they have a festival, and I thought I don't need to stick around for the festival. So while I sat there in the teacher's lounge was empty, by the way. There were no other teachers there. Each teacher had already been assigned to responsibility during the festival, to be a chaperone. And even the teacher whom I was, substituting for had an assignment. So there was reason for me to stay for the festival because I had to fulfill her duties. Well, as I sat in the teacher's lounge debating whether I should stay for the festival or just leave and let them figure out, how to do it, my sense of duty overrode any feelings that I had of, abandonment. Maybe I should just leave. I thought I should just abandon this. Abandoning my responsibility meant that perhaps I would not be paid, for my time for that hour. And so I thought, well, I have to get paid. I've got to do this job. It's my responsibility. Now, another thing that weighed on my mind is this was a festival, school festival, and I hadn't participated in school events. In fact, the first week that I began my assignment, my substitute teaching assignment at that school, the first week there were 2 shootings. It was in the first shooting happened during the last period of the day, but it occurred off campus at the at the park, adjacent to the school. And because there was police activity, or because there was police did arrive at the park, and because there was a lot of commotion, then we had to go on lockdown. So that was the first event. The first thing that happened. And then that same day there was a basketball game scheduled, and at the basketball game there was a melee that broke out. Students and teachers were fighting, and someone in the audience decided that taking out a gun and firing it a number of times would cause the teachers, the parents, and the students, whomever was involved, I wasn't there, cause them to stop fighting. Terrible idea, but that's what happened. And so someone started firing a weapon. And so, yeah, that was enough of a reason to not want to attend any school function. But I capitulated. I acquiesced. I was there and I did it. So on Friday, there I was. I went to the playground where the festival was to take place, and things looked safe and whatnot. And I still had my GoPro apparatus so that I could film the festivities. I thought to myself, why don't I just make a video of this? Why don't I go ahead and film, the activity? Let's do that. So in doing that, in staying true to my goal, I had the apparatus, the GoPro apparatus, and I was walking around filming the activities. So that's what happened. And then it happened. I happened upon the tent set up by the Marathon Clothing, company, and I thought to myself, hey, TMC is here. That's cool. That's very cool. That they would donate some of their goods, for the kids. Here, kids, celebrate your win. What I did not know was the whole team, the real, the real dudes of the TMC, clothing, the Marathon Clothing Company would be right there. I did not know this, but they all were there. They hopped out, and I was like, there they go. There they are. These were all friends of Nipsey, right? From his neighborhood, all of them, and they are businessmen, and they were all doing their thing. And then I saw Nipsey's brother, and then that was the icing on the cake. It was like, yo, Blacc Sam is here. So let me run down who was there. Adam, Blacc Sam, Cobby Supreme, Jay Stone, BH, and Killer Twan. Also Nipsey's bodyguard. They were all there. It was bittersweet, Bittersweet, man. Because Nip wasn't there. Like, dang, dude. But anyway, as the meditation, described, Nipsey searched for his truth in books and, resonated on a high level, and his intention matched his soul. That's all, that's all what it is. Because Nipsey knew at a very young age, at 15 years old or so, that he was going to make it on his own. That's a bold decision, and he dropped out of high school and devoted himself to his mission, and that's just remarkable. Very scary, but absolutely remarkable. And it's funny that Nipsey did that, but also Idris Sandu did that. Idris Sandu, the young Ghanaian man who went to the library for 1 year, never missed a day, and he studied computer science. He checked books out, or he sat at a desk reading books about computers for 1 year. And there was a gentleman from Google who entered the same library and needed to check out the same book. And when he discovered that this young black kid was reading the book that he needed, then he asked him, do you know what you're reading? Do you understand this stuff? And when he replied yes, I do know what I'm reading, the gentleman said, man, if you know what you're doing, then you could probably work, for Google. And I think that man had a say, or had a hand in recruiting this young boy, Idris Sandu. And so Idris Sandu, with his brilliance and genius, was able to contribute to the creation of Uber and the design of, he worked with Google, Apple, Uber, you name it. And he also worked with Nipsey Hussle in creating the world's very first smart store, where they integrated geofencing technology. So if you were to walk into Nipsey's store, you'd have an experience that was tailor-made to that store. And so if you enter that store, you could only have an experience at that location because it was geo-fenced. I mean, but that's a brilliant mind. He was he 11 years old when he went to that library? Was Nipsey 15 when he dropped out of school? Like, who does that? The guidance I received from my parents was to be successful in America, you gotta go to college. You gotta get a degree. You gotta graduate from high school first. You gotta do these things. I would argue I'm not as successful as a Nipsey Hussle or an Idris Sandu. Shoot. My mom, the last time I saw my mom, was it yesterday? No, it wasn't yesterday. It was the day before. Yeah, it was Friday. After work. I believe my mom told me, what are you gonna do? You looking for a job? What are you gonna do during the summer? And I'm just like, my mom is like on me about getting a job and bringing in some money during the summer months, because the summer school comes up, and she's like, what you gonna do? And I'm just like, what do you want for your son? What are you saying to me? Nipsey and Idris figured it out at 11 years old, figured it out at 15. I'm 43. And you want me to get a job? If I didn't have a job when I was... Oh, man. Well, let me talk about what I was doing when I was 11. I was deeply into martial arts. I was going to martial arts class 3 times a week. And that's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And yeah, by 11, I was 1 year away, or probably months away from starring. No, wait a minute, I didn't just say that. I had a role that I think was a starring, role, starring as something. No, I was not a star. I was a featured extra. I need a cough. Excuse me. I had to clear my throat. I was a featured extra in a movie the following year when I was 12 years old. That experience and opportunity was granted to me because of the martial arts training that I had. Also, the connections my dad had with the movie's director. But the martial arts and that part, that was all me. So by 12 years old, yeah, I had something going for myself. The following year, I had a contract with an agent and a manager. But I soon went through puberty, and when that happened, I was less attractive, and Hollywood did not want to deal with an unattractive child going through puberty. They want the children who are attractive, period. They want people who are attractive, So that's when my focus shifted from Hollywood to, my education. And I was dogged by the reality that cash rules everything around me. And I tried to get some of it. And the one thing that I thought was, I have to learn about money in order to make money. I have to learn about finance. And even though I was better suited to be an English major in college, I said to myself, college is an opportunity to experiment with information, to learn something that you're unfamiliar with, to actually learn. College is an opportunity to actually learn. For 4 years, you can learn something. And I said, I'm going to learn finance because I need to learn how the stock market works. I was already investing in the stock market at the age of 13. After the movie, after getting a few $1,000s, I put that money in mutual funds. Mutual funds that was the only investment. That was the new investment. That was the new investment, and that was pretty much the only investment that I felt was safe. I didn't think to buy any stock in any one particular company. That seemed just too risky because there were so many companies and I had to know which one would outlast the others. And I didn't have the financial acumen, the financial knowledge at that time. But a $2,000 investment in Apple at that time, I don't think Apple was around though, but a $2,000 investment in Tesla wasn't around at that time. $2,000 investment in Disney. I think Disney probably would have paid well. But then again, remember, we went through so many events from September 11th, even to the recent pandemic. Wait a minute, September 11th was 2001, but then we went through the 07-08 subprime mortgage crisis, and then we went through the pandemic. So we went through some tremendous moments. And I don't know if $2,000 would have made me a millionaire or, and done it. And then the other thing was, by the time I graduated from college at 17, I had a job, or rather I found that it was so difficult for me to get a job that I had to create my own business, which I did with the help of my mother and father, well, mostly my dad, again. But it was just seeming okay, let me be more specific. The job that I created for myself, the business I created, was a apartment cleaning and painting service. So the story goes, my mom and dad managed property, some of the property they own, real estate. And the units, the apartment units needed to be renovated, needed to be fixed up for each tenant. And so my company they would hire my company to clean the apartment and paint the walls and paint it so that it would be presentable for the next, the incoming tenant. And so we did that. I even hired Dorsey High School students, my sister's classmates. My sister went to Dorsey, and I hired classmates and paid them for the work that they did. And I was told that was, it was really life affirming, and it was really positive, and it was because at that time in my life, I was giving opportunities. I was like a young Nipsey Hussle businessman, hiring, people, hiring blacks, creating jobs in the community. I was doing that at 17 years old. I stopped doing that only because there was a tremendous pressure coming from my mother and father to go to college. And I believed, okay, fine, if I get my college degree and if I get it in finance, then I'll be smarter and I'll be better able to market myself and get a job and, move on with my life. But what I found with studying finance is that I wasn't prepared to study finance. I didn't do well on exams to place me. So because I didn't do well on the exams, they placed me in lower level classes to begin with, which meant I had to spend more of my time, developing my skills before I could start taking classes. I had to take basically remedial math, which was actually very helpful. I mean, I aced those classes because everything was very straightforward. They would give you the algebraic equation and have you solve it, and they'd give you a number of these problems to solve. And if you knew the formulas and if you knew how, even if you didn't know, you just had to listen to the instruction. The teachers were explaining everything, so just listen, show up to class, listen, do the work, and pass the class. And that's all I did. Showed up, listened, took my notes, and I did the assignments. And the thing about it was, The thing about it was in that moment when I was in college and I was just attending classes, doing the work and getting through it, at that level, I thought nothing could be simpler. You show up to the class, you do the work, you get your grade. As long as you understand it and you do the assignment, or rather you provide the right answer, you're going to pass the class. And it was like an A, B, C, sort of. It was a 1, 2, 3 function. It was like just show up, do the work, and you get an A, and you move on. There was nothing else complicated that process for me. But in high school, it was more ego driven. It was about distractions. It was about your clothes. It was about which college you were going to get into. It was about superfluous stuff, distractions, and it didn't help. It didn't help. And so oftentimes, I hadn't done my best. But also, you need tutors. You need help, in those areas. You need help with explaining things. And so if I didn't have an explanation for it, then I just either didn't care to do it or didn't try hard enough. Or I absolutely didn't search for the answers. That was just like, if it doesn't come to me, leave it alone. And that's kind of like that's kind of the thing that happens, or in school. It's like, look, if it doesn't come easily to you, then you're not right for it. If you're not good at math, then don't get involved in math. If you are good in math, if you are good at math and science, then you're a nerd. That's where you belong. Now, if you have any physical capabilities, then you follow that. You're a jock. Join the football, basketball, softball, baseball team. Do all of that. That's where you go. That's how crude it is, or it was in school. And it was like, no, you need to find your passion, and there are no types. This is what I railed against. I was so angry. There isn't a type of person. There are intelligences. There are multiple intelligences. You might be physically intelligent and you're able to move it's a kinesthetic expression that you can do. You can move your body very well. But hey, you could be overweight and still have that physical intelligence. There's not, just because you're not ideal for that role doesn't mean that you can't fulfill it, can't do it. That's why I chose math, finance, because it was like, I have a brain, I'm smart. If I just apply myself, I can learn this and get through it. And that part of my education was so profound, learning about the maths, teaching myself the maths. I never expected to learn calculus. I never expected to learn, econometrics. And it was interesting to find myself in those roles, but also I discovered that I could do it. I challenged myself and I rose to the challenge. How did I get off talking about my education? Nipsey. I was just going to talk about Friday and the events. Well, I'll say this. Friday came, and during the festival, while I was filming the festival, and when I saw Blacc Sam, man, it was just like something else. Yeah, I got off on a tangent with this one because I was initially thinking about, what would I say to Blacc Sam? Because in that moment, I couldn't. That moment came and went so quickly. Blacc Sam was in front. Blacc Sam approached me You know what? I would like to think that he approached me because he was in his area, and then he walked toward me, and there was eye contact. So I believed, like, man, yo, Blacc Sam is approaching me. So he walked over, full eye contact, handshake, and I was like, wow, dude, this is Blacc Sam. I shook his hand, and then I didn't have anything to say. All I could think of, all I could think of was, well, let me get a picture with you, man. He was like, all right, snap the photo, and the rest is history. That was it. So that's all that happened. But man, could have, would have, should have. I think the next segment of this podcast will have to be, what would I have liked to have said to Blacc Sam that I didn't on Friday? That's what I'm going to talk about next. And we're back. So I'm ruminating on what I would have said to Blacc Sam if I had the time. If I had the time to say it, I would have said to him, I said, man, I appreciate your work. I'm inspired by your life. I'm inspired by your works. That's what I would have told him. Then, if I had more time, I say, bro, what else? Oh yeah, I thought, just say, hey man, when are we going to Eritrea? When are we going, man? That would have probably shocked him. Like, are you Eritrean? You, uh, that would have made him ask a question. What you talking about, man? What you know about Eritrea, man? And then maybe that would spark the conversation. Like, bro, I was in Ethiopia, man. In 2017. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to tell him. I'd be like, bro, I arrived in Ethiopia for the first time March 31st, 2017. March 31st, bro. 2017. That's the day I touched the ground. Like, damn, bro. Because that date, I'm sure, if you even mention that date, he's like, that's the day I lost my brother, man. Like, yeah, dude. But nah, man, that's the day the world lost its shining star. But yeah, I would like to tell him that. I would like to impress upon him. Wait a minute now. Sam's got money. Sam's been getting money. So I would have had to have said, hey, brother, when are we going to work together, man? When are we going to work together? Yeah. When are we going to go to Eritrea? That's one question. But when are we going to work together? Say, bro, I'm a real estate salesperson in Los Angeles, man. Slide some business my way. Tell some people, hey, contact this dude. But then again, there's so many other real estate agents. Everybody's a real estate agent, you dig? So, but yeah, that would have been cool. Like, hey man, tap in with us. Let me help you out. Let me get something cracking for you. Like, oh man, all right, Larry, see what I can do. Yeah, man, you dig? When you're in position like that, you put others in position. That's what Nip was all about. But yeah, shit. I should have. What I really should have done is just rolled. That should have been my interview right there. Like, bruh, oh, you don't know me, man, but you need to know me. Shoot, I'm ready. I'm ready to work. I'm ready for service. Aye, Captain. I'm here. He'd probably be like, oh, so what can you do? I mean, that's what happened when I went to Canoga Park to the Marathon Collective. Prosper asked me, what do you do? And I told him, man, I'm hustling it up. That's on the video. I did a video, vlog, a video to show my trip to the Marathon clothing store. I don't think Sam has seen it, but that'd have been cool. That'd have been awesome if he approached me. And if he had said, "I see 109," I'd be like, "Oh man, how'd you?" Just like, yeah, man. We know who's moving. We know what's up. I'm like, who's moving? Nigga, I'm not moving. Ish. Shoot, I'm just posting these videos that nobody's watching, recording these podcasts that no one's listening to. What you talk about? But so what else? Yeah, Eritrea, March 31st, man. And then if he really had time, I would get into it and say, bro, I need your ear. I need to tell you, everything that happened because this is some bizarre stuff. It's a bizarre story and it's all related to you. It's related to you. I mean, it's directly related to your brother. But man, we don't have your brother here anymore, man. It's you. And you are, you're cut from the same cloth. And the thing about it, man, is in that documentary, Sam said the police had harassed him, and he said, and we looked up and we saw that for lease sign. That's what Sam said. And he said that was God talking to us. And I'm like, bro, the fact that you mentioned God, in your story like this, I'm like, dude, that's where I am with this. That's where I am with my story of IC 109, of my story of 109, man. All of this, none of this was, just random. This is in divine order. It was supposed to come to fruition like this. When he said that, I was like, man. Let me explain. When he said that, I was like, yo, these brothers are tapped in. They're tapped into, he said when he spoke God, he was tapped into something beyond, oh, we're just going to get this money. We're out here on these streets of Los Angeles or whatever. No, he's tapped into a greater mission. It's not a coincidence. It's not by chance that these men landed in South Central Los Angeles. Nah, man. There are no coincidences. I don't want to get too deep into it and lose people. But for what I see, I see a resurgence of an ancient spirit that perhaps lay dormant for a long time, or that was subjugated, it was diverted. Its resurgence was, it was yeah, a lot of this stuff. 1619. The 1619 project talks about our history and then talks about the 400 years. And it's amazing, the 400 years, 1619 to 2019, that was 400 years. And then I just got a message. That's what that ding was. Probably going to get more messages too. But 1619 to 400, the 400-year mark was an awakening mark. The 2019 was a year of awakening. It was just there was a lot of Black consciousness. It was the year of return to Ghana, and there was a lot of attention on Africa. Personally, I gave a lot of attention to Africa that year. And when the Ethiopian Airlines crashed, that was another event that just solidified it for me, like focus on Africa. It wasn't news that certainly wasn't news that I wanted to hear, but it was like, dang. And it jolted me because Ottawa, the Battle of Ottawa was being celebrated on April 1st. And that was a time for celebration and elation. And then 9 days later, it's time for mourning. Like, what a roller coaster. Wow. And then the month continued with Nipsey's murder, and that was just horrible. But for me and my experience, I was far removed from Los Angeles. The mean streets of LA, I wasn't there. I was in Oman, which was not a part of the Aksumite Empire. However, it was close enough. And on top of that, the week of the week Nipsey was murdered, the last week of March was also, the week before Easter, I think it was, in America. But around that same time, the Muslims were celebrating, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his ascension to heaven. The Muslims had their own Eid celebration. So the same week Nipsey was murdered, and I would say ascended to heaven, the Muslims were praying that their prophet was ascending to heaven, or on that date. It's an interesting coincidence that those two events occurred at that time. And what's interesting is, it was 2019. I had already been to Ethiopia, and I was planning a trip to Eritrea during that vacation week. I was going to leave Oman and go to Eritrea. That was the plan. And as soon as I learned that an Ethiopian and on top of not only would I fly to Ethiopia, excuse me, would I fly to Eritrea, but also I was planning on flying there through means of Ethiopian Airlines. So once I got news Ethiopian Airlines crashed, I was like, "Oh hell no, I'm not. Let me rethink this vacation period. I don't think I'm gonna. I don't think I'm gonna do that." And plus, the information was very fresh, so we didn't have all of the explanations to understand what had happened. Yeah, and I was off it. I was like, "I'm not going. No, thank you. You can keep that trip." And it was too close to home. I was flying Ethiopian Airlines. I chose to fly Ethiopian Airlines. That's how deep this is, because I was so prideful of Ethiopian Airlines. Like, that's John Charles Robinson's airline. John Charles Robinson. He was an American black man who fought on the side of the Ethiopians during the Second Italo-Abyssinian War. He was able to serve when there were so many other black men who did not or could not serve because our country, America, did not allow us to fight any other nation on the side. We couldn't fight against other European nations. We couldn't side. We couldn't, yeah. Even though there were lines of black men who wanted to enlist and fight in Ethiopia, American black men were willing to die for the rights of Ethiopians. That's powerful. And I saw myself in John Charles Robinson because I had gained an appreciation of Ethiopia from my travels, and I was like, everything is for Ethiopia. And so March, I was ready to go back to, an East African nation. Now, let me make this clear. Ethiopia and Eritrea are different countries today, but that's only because of the political BS that Europe has been dictating. And you know, these nations are only separate because of European global interests. because at one time they were one, they were all one. And my mind goes to that. My mind goes to the unity between African nations. So instead of seeing Ethiopia as separate from Eritrea, I think about Aksum and the Aksumite Empire led by Queen of Sheba, a biblical reference there. Man, at that time it was Aksum, it was Ethiopia, it was Eritrea, it was Saudi Arabia, and it was Yemen. All of these modern day separate nations were all united under Queen of Sheba. So anyway, when I saw Nipsey, so I had an epiphany the day Nipsey was murdered. I had an epiphany. It all made sense to me. I understood that Nipsey, in one moment, I understood that he was an Oxumite. He was a descendant of Oxum, and I understood that. Uh, I don't know. I've got to work on these ideas, but something about the Madonna, the Black Madonna. Black Madonna suggested to me that Jesus was black. And so I was like, all right, if Nipsey is a descendant of Queen of Sheba's in the Bible, we're talking about black people, then Nipsey rose to the highest level that a black man could rise throughout his lifetime because he believed in himself. He believed in truth, and his intention and his soul matched. And so he was vibrating at the highest frequency. And who else but a divine being could resonate at a high frequency like that? So from there, it was like Nipsey was Jesus. That's what the epiphany told me. That was it. Not the Jesus of the Bible, but what I would say an apex figure, a leader, a person who reflects what we're thinking, a person who is a thought leader, a person who is through their demonstration showing us, you know, um, how we need to work together, how we must, excuse me, how we must operate as a collective. Nipsey once said, he wants to see his people walk into their greatness collectively. I think that's powerful. And hearing that was just something that just made me realize like the dude is very special. But then again, his name was Ermias. His name meant God will rise. And so there was so much that was important about him that it needed to be recognized. And I felt that sure, the money, the accolades, everything that he was receiving those were material things, but it was also from the perspective of America. This is how America celebrates its heroes. Give them lots of money, give them awards, put them in front of the people, let them talk, record them, do this type of stuff. But it was, for me, it seemed as if I had to explain to the people that there was something else working here, that it wasn't just, oh, he decided long ago to pursue this. He dedicated, sacrificed, and, you know, and made it happen. But no, my thing is it's his DNA. Isaiah Washington, the Isaiah Washington, the actor, said that DNA has memory. And if Nipsey's DNA, you know, this is the way that I understand it at this moment today. American blacks suffered through slavery, oppression, and tremendous, obstacles, challenges throughout our history for 400 years in America. Nipsey's bloodline, I would argue, didn't suffer under, you know, the white man's rule. Might have been suffering under a black man's rule, but not the same sort of degradation, not the same Holocaust, not the same tragedies, tragic experience. This is what I'm arguing. Nipsey's bloodline did not know the tragedy and suffering of American blacks. At least one half of his DNA, one half of his history. His history was a proud people from, East Africa, perhaps lived in peace for many of their years. And they were merchants and traders, and they didn't know violence. But anyway, so that was part of his DNA. And so my thing is, when I walked into the Marathon clothing store in 2018, and Blacc Sam was walking out as I was walking in the door, I was with my mom, and we had already stepped inside of the store. And as we were looking around the store, I saw Blacc Sam walking toward the door to exit. And I could have sworn he said something to me, but he said, "Hey, brother, come on in, King. Come on in and shop, brother. Enjoy yourself. This is our time, our movement." I think he said something like that. But he could have been talking to his dad and saying, "All right, Pops, I'll see you later. I'm headed out now." He might have said that, but I heard something different. But when I walked in there, it was so clean and so well done. The presentation was so smooth. I had already been to Ethiopia, and I got a sense of how regal and how and how beautiful the Ethiopian people are. And so I could see that translated in what Nipsey and Blacc Sam were doing. I had one foot in Los Angeles, but then like part of me was in Los Angeles, the other part of me was in Ethiopia, but I could seamlessly see the connection. I could see how walking the streets of Ethiopia in your own country, you could have a feeling of wholeness. This is who I am. This is where I am. I don't need to be anywhere else. I don't need to buy into any of this BS. I'm good right where I am. I am who I am. And then there's a luxurious aspect of it. There's so much pride in Ethiopian blood. There's so much pride there. Forget all of the Western ideals. Oh, it's a poor nation. It's this, that, and the third. I tell you what, talk about Ethiopia being a poor nation. No, it's been an agrarian. They've been farming all of this time. You want to talk about poverty? Man, you better skip that conversation because Ethiopia is coming with that great Renaissance dam. They said, "Oh, don't you ever underestimate Ethiopia. We'll cut off your water supply." Egypt talking about, but you can't cut off our water. It's like, no, this is African water. Ethiopia will say, and Egypt, because you know how there's this prevailing idea that Egypt has always been considered not a part of Africa. So if the Ethiopians cut that water supply and say, no, this water belongs to Africa, those Egyptians will be quick to say, but we are Africa. We are right here. There are no borders between us. And it's like, oh, so now you're African. But before, you want to play these political games and consider yourself a European, consider yourself, some other group outside of Africa. Nah, but Ethiopia. For being in Ethiopia, for having my experience there, I found it to be highly regal, highly profound, proud, very special. That's only because it was Ethiopia that I traveled to. I'm sure my experience would be the same in Eritrea, Nipsey's country, because Eritrea and Ethiopia were one and the same at one time. So I'm not gonna go. I don't think I'm gonna go to Eritrea and feel, oh man, this is a poor backwards nation. They have no idea. Nah, this is that's also they've had their recent skirmishes and their recent issues, but no, the truth of the matter is they are one and the same. So anyway, Nipsey's bloodline, full of the power and lacking in trauma. You know how what is it, Joyce DeGruy, Dr. Joyce DeGruy talks about the post-traumatic post-traumatic slavery disorder or something like that, PTSD from slavery. And so American Black DNA is traumatized, but it was the African DNA that overrode it. And that's what we saw the expression of. But see, Nipsey embodied the American Black and the African, the Eritrean, the Oxumite bloodline. And so, in that sense, he was a unifier. He brought us together. He articulated God's mission, Jesus's. He articulated Jesus's vision through the language, through the vernacular of the streets. He wore the Rolling 60s, he carried that Rolling 60s on his back, just as Jesus carried the cross, to his crucifixion with the thorny crown. This is some powerful stuff. And so Nipsey took it. Nipsey carried it all the way. And it's fascinating that at one end of Slauson Avenue, you have the Crenshaw and Slauson intersection that is like, boom, holy Nipsey. And then drive west down Slauson, and you will eventually arrive at the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian Church down that street. And then if you look at that from a bird's eye view, then you can see the cross. You can see the intersection of Crenshaw and Slauson, and then at the base, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So that's like, there's a cross there. So many biblical references and stuff. I'm not making this stuff up. I had an epiphany when I was in Oman. And then the other thing was, on the day that Nipsey was murdered, and while I was in Oman, I saw my birthday on a car, on one single car that jumped in front of me, that cut me off. Oh, it was the number 109. And then that's when I had the epiphany and everything made sense when I saw that number, because I had seen that number for like 12 years or more. And I had always had a moment. It had always, it resonated with me. It always meant something to me to see those numbers, like, damn, those are my numbers. That's my birthday. But on that day that Nipsey was murdered, it was like there was a different resonance. It was like, calm your spirit. You are exactly where you need to be. Everything is in divine order. And that's when, in that moment, I could see Nipsey, I could see Eritrea, I could see Ethiopia, I could see Aksum. I was like, oh, snap, Nipsey was from Aksum. I was like, well, why is his death, why is his murder affecting me so deeply? And then the answer came. It said, because he was an Aksumite. And I had been to the city of Aksum, and it was like, oh, he was like Jesus. That's why it affected us so hard. And then it threw me into it for a tailspin. And so why did he die at 33 years old on the same week as is celebrated the Prophet Muhammad's rise, peace be upon him, but also within, the following week, Easter, the resurrection? It was just too much. It was like, it wasn't too much to handle. It was too much, like, all of these things are pointing to one thing. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
You're at 109 right now.